Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of my Blood Elf Warlock Let's Play series, where this is the final episode for this little series that we are doing, where I was trying to decide if I want to do a lot of stuff and maybe make it 2 episodes, but I think we are going to explore Outland today, and we are just going to do a bit of an adventure through Outland, looking at a few different things from the perspective of the Horde and then logging out there. And I might play this character in the future in a stream at some point, but basically today is the end of this adventure, where I do have one quest over here that I can go turn in, which I picked up in Silvermoon City, I believe, and it's basically a quest that sends you over here to Orgrimmar, so you kind of learn about Orgrimmar, and then it is a quest that takes you into a dungeon, so we will be able to explore that, where there are a variety of different things we can do in Orgrimmar. And of course World of Warcraft is a very open-ended game with a ton of expansions that you can play through and just a ton of stuff in general that you can do, where I've been playing through a lot of World of Warcraft, and currently in streams I've been playing through some of the Dragonflight expansion, and this is basically approaching the end of my adventures in the Burning Crusade, which is very exciting. But of course we could go to any expansion that we want to, and this is the Wyvern's Tail, not where we are supposed to go. We're supposed to go into these barracks right over here, where there's some player versus player stuff going on, and this is kind of a cool model for a barracks, and we have this warlock trainer right here that we can go ahead and speak to, and we can complete this quest. And this is sending us to Shadowfang Keep, and we can get this staff, which actually, this looks so cool. Wait, this staff looks incredible. I love a good classic scythe skin, especially for a warlock. I feel like that fits in very well. But I'm going to leave that there, and maybe one day, most likely not, I'll try to get that staff skin. But I want to go ahead and complete our quest, Burning Crusade to Outland, where we have a Warchief's command board here that I'll check out, where this is sending us to Shadowmoon Valley, Netherstorm, or the Storm Peaks, which is very fitting. I feel like this is maybe based on an algorithm or something, because this is Burning Crusade, and Wrath Lich King, my 2 favorite expansions in World of Warcraft. But I'm going to go ahead and head to a Thrallmar Mage, which we can find in the portal room that we explored a little bit of last episode. Where in my Draenei Warrior Let's Play series, we explored a bit of Outland, and we explored it from the perspective of the Alliance, because the Draenei are members of the Alliance, and largely it's, generally speaking, kind of the same experience through Outland, where there are some major story beats that differ between the Horde and the Alliance, with one of the major story beats for the Horde being related to the Orcs, because of course Outland is the ruined, broken world of the Orcs, formerly known as Draenor. So there are some quests there that we can do related to that, but there are a wide variety of other quests that we can do, and I just want to check out a few things, which of course we have the bottom floor for the portal room here, and we have this portal that will take us to Shattrath, but we want to do this more the traditional way, which we can't really do anymore in retail World of Warcraft, but we are going to report to the Dark Portal, which is going to send us directly through the Dark Portal to the first steps that you take in Outland, here at the Stair of Destiny, which we can see behind us, the massive Dark Portal, which is often an inspiration for some of my Nether Portal builds in Minecraft. But we can run down here and see a ton of demons, and we can complete this quest. And we have Lieutenant General Orion, and these demons are charging forward a little bit. That was kind of scary, but let's run over here to this Wind Rider Master, where we can go ahead and fly off into Hellfire Peninsula around Outland, and we can turn this in, and then we get this flight to Thrallmar, the main base of operations for the Horde here in Hellfire Peninsula, named of course after Thrall, the leader of the Orcs and the leader of the Horde, until the Cataclysm expansion at least. But this is a very beautiful zone that I know some people don't like Hellfire Peninsula, but honestly I love this so much, and I feel like it's such a fantastic experience, and I'm just someone who really loves the zones of Outland and how they look. Where, if you're watching this episode, just so you know, I have played through a lot of Outland and various streams of mine, which if I remember, I'll throw a link to that playlist down in the description, where this is just a little bit of a taste. But if you want to watch more, a more comprehensive playthrough of Outland, feel free to check that out. But as you can kind of tell, this is, of course, as I said, a very similar experience to the Alliance, where the Alliance fly over there to Honorhold on the opposite side of the Path of Glory, where Magtheridon's head is impaled on that spike right there, which is cool. But let's go ahead, turn this in, and then we can go speak to Nazgro, who is actually a very, very cool character who I like a lot, because Nazgro in vanilla World of Warcraft is hanging out in Orgrimmar near Thrall, and in Warcraft 3 he was a somewhat important character, and now he is the advisor to Thrall, sent here to Thrallmar to serve as basically the leader of Thrall's basically wishes, or however you want to say that, where we have a bunch of quests here that we can do, where we have the ears of the war chief, where we can go to the shattered halls and we could kill some bone chewer orcs, which we can see is very, very similar to the quests that we have had, where we have this goblin quest over here, which if you kind of remember my Draenei Warrior Let's Play series, if you chat with this goblin, we can get some salvaged metal and salvaged wood, which is fun. Where it's very interesting for the orcs to be fighting the fell orcs here, because of course not too long ago they were basically the same people, but the fell orcs, who have been drinking the blood of Magtheridon to empower themselves, have been twisted into a very, very, very different type of orc compared to the greenskin orcs, who drank some of the blood of Manoroth, a different pit lord. But let's go ahead and get this quest, and where I just want to reach a level 30, and then I want to leave this area since we explored a lot of it on my Draenei character, and we could go check out some other stuff. Which maybe, since we are a warlock, let's head into Imminent Doom over near this Fell Reaver here, where there's actually a fallen Fell Reaver up there that the Horde were able to defeat. So let's just go check that out while this Fell Reaver walks by. Reaver's Fall, where we can see a lot of orcs just emoting right here atop the corpse of this fallen Fell Reaver. And we got some armored wyvern destroyers, which are similar to the griffins that are going to send us out to different areas as we progress through the quests here. And we have this floating skull, which is kind of interesting looking, with this apothecary Zelena, who is a member of the Royal Apothecary Society. But let's go ahead, drop down here carefully. That's probably a lot of damage. Speaking of which, let's go ahead, throw a soul stone on ourselves, and then give ourselves a health stone. And then let's maneuver over here. Let's ignore the hellbores for now. And let's make sure the Fell Reaver doesn't turn around. They most likely should not turn around, like right there. They should path around to another area. But of course, Fell Reavers are some of the most dangerous enemies in all World of Warcraft, just because of how they often just ambush players that aren't really paying too much attention. And since they are a high level elite, which actually is not too high level right now, but in like the Burning Crusade they're a level 70 elite, and most players like coming through this area are like around level 58 to like level 61. So it's definitely a very, very dangerous area for those players with these guys walking around. But of course, the Burning Crusade is an expansion that focuses a lot on the demons, as the Burning Crusade is basically the campaign that the demons are enacting across the Twisted Nether as they raise various worlds, transforming some of the denizens into soldiers of the Burning Legion, and basically just annihilating life across the cosmos for a variety of reasons that we explore throughout various expansions, especially in the Legion expansion, which feels very similar to the Burning Crusade in many like ways, with like a lot of similar characters and a lot of similar story beats, where the Legion is kind of like the finale for like the entire Burning Legion storyline, where we have experienced a lot of the storyline technically since like the very beginning of the Warcraft universe, as the orcs are basically manipulated by the Burning Legion in order to invade Azeroth at the very start of the very first game. But we learn a lot about the demons here across Outland, and I feel like it's fitting to come through here as a warlock, because we as a warlock enslave demons, where we have 2 wild imps right here, and we are currently attacking 3 imps right now. Currently 2 imps, and about to be 1 imp and 0 imps, where I feel like it's just like a fitting class to play in this expansion, especially as a Blood Elf, which was introduced in this expansion. And as we explore around the road a little bit, we will see some more Blood Elves hanging out around here. but we are very close to level 30, so we just need to kill one Infernal Warbringer, and then we might honestly level up before we have the option to go turn in this quest, which is okay with me. Let's go ahead, attack this little infernal creature right here, which I feel like the Infernals are just super nostalgic because of my experience in Warcraft 3, but there they go, level 30, or there we go specifically. I guess, you know, we have our demons with us, but let's go ahead, retreat back towards Thrallmar. The Fell Reaver has slowly maneuvered around here, so this is actually convenient timing to allow us to pass behind him right here. But with us being level 30, we can now fly around Outland and other areas of the world, which is really, really fun. But let's turn in this quest because I completed this quest. And then we could go to Reaver's Fall, which maybe I'll just pick up this quest because why not? And this item that we got is actually not better than what we currently have equipped. I feel like we lose a single versatility and every other stat is the same, which is very interesting. But we have a group of refugees right here, or pilgrims rather, who come from Quel'Danas, and they're here to basically meet up with some of the Blood Elves who are in Outland, and we can go ahead and meet up with them as well, where we can go ahead and leave this place. Cookie One Eye hanging out right here, who's actually kind of an interesting character just because he's called Cookie, and we see some other cookie chefs around the world. But when we come into here, we have our flying trainer and a wind rider keeper, where we have these wind riders here that we can go ahead and mount up. I wish I already owned a bunch of them. But let's go ahead, come into our warband collection here, and let's take a look at wind riders, where, oh, just a single one, where I have a bunch, but let's go ahead and pick maybe the Swift red one is kind of like the Orc Classic, where I'll go ahead and throw this. Oops, I'll go ahead and throw that right there, where I'm currently in steady flight, so we can go ahead and just fly around like this. But something I actually want to double check is Dragon Hawk, where we have a red Dragon Hawk from my mounts achievement, and I remember looking through this a while ago, where we could get time warped badges for doing time walking dungeons, and we can do some other stuff. But let's actually go ahead and use a red Dragon Hawk because I feel like it's fitting on this character, which we can go ahead and just fly around Outland like this. But since I've been exploring the Dragonflight expansion in World of Warcraft, I thought it would be fun to maybe explore a bit of Outland and Old Zone, the first expansion for World of Warcraft, with the new dragon riding mechanic, and just see how it feels to basically fly around like this area of the world. Like, that was added way before dragon riding was actually implemented. I'll turn in this, and then I'm going to go ahead and abandon these two quests because I don't want to do them, and let's switch over to sky riding instead of steady flight. Switch flight style, and now let's mount up onto our Dragonhawk, and now we have these special abilities here, which of course I've explored a bunch of in my Dragonflight playthrough, but we just have some opportunities to like flap upwards and flap forwards and to do some other stuff. So let's go ahead and do just that. So wish in Dragonflight you were only able to do this on special dragon, like riding dragons that you could find throughout the expansion. But with the War Within, dragon riding or sky riding has been introduced to a ton of different mounts. So now us on our Dragonhawk can actually explore the skies on a Dragonhawk, but with the new flying mechanics, where let's go ahead and maybe just come down here really quickly, because I pointed this area out a bunch in my adventures here throughout Hellfire Peninsula, but I always find this spot right here so cool with this Fallen Zeppelin, where I always love Fallen Zeppelins in World of Warcraft for whatever reason. I love the one in Sugarthorn Vale a lot. I'm not sure why, I just feel like it's a really cool like set piece or whatever. But let's go ahead, zoom off this way, which feels really cool on a Dragonhawk, and let's go ahead and fly this way, and let's go ahead and take a look at this town right over here, right next to the Great Fissure, because this is the Blood Elf outpost here in Outland, known as Falcon Watch, and this is just like an important area for like Horde to come to quest, and we have this orb of translocation here that we can go ahead and teleport up here, and we have the leader here. Now, this is actually a nice spot to start dragon riding from actually, but I just always find this area right here like really cool. Let's go ahead, just glide down here a little bit, and then maybe we can fly off into this direction, which maybe I'll just do a tour of Outland and just look at a variety of different things instead of doing any quests, because I have reached level 30, which I wanted to reach to unlock the dragon riding mechanic. And part of me actually wants to switch over to steady flight, I feel like, just so we can go ahead and fly around casually without having to think about like the dragon riding mechanic specifically. But here we have the Maghar grounds, which is the Horde's first opportunity to basically experience the orcs, or the native orcs of Draenor, with the Maghar, who are basically the remnants of a variety of the orc tribes. I think they're predominantly like frost wolves or something along those lines, but in general they're just a lot of the orc tribes who were left behind in Outland and did not go through the dark portal and are now just hanging out around this area. Now let's go ahead and fly into Zangar Marsh really quickly, where we have this big area right here with a ton of mushrooms. And I always love Zangar Marsh so much. I always feel like it's such a cool environment. Which right next to Zangar Marsh, we of course have Blade's Edge Mountains, which is another really cool environment that I like a lot. And I feel like it's just super cool looking, but it's definitely maybe my least favorite zone in Outland, if I'm being completely honest. Alright, let's go ahead and land right over here, where we can find another orcish outpost, but this is the outpost of the Mach Nathal, where we have half orc, half ogre allies hanging out here that we can go ahead and help out with a variety of different quests. Maybe one of the most important of the orcs is Leorox, of course, who is very cool looking, and he has Tethic next to him. But let's mount back up onto my Dragonhawk, where I now have steady flight, and a very important zone for people who are interested in the Blood Elves is this storm, or zone, Netherstorm, which this is a very cool looking zone that I love a lot. But there's one very particular area that I've been wanting to showcase in a Let's Play series, especially in this one and the last one, because of how important it is for those two specific Let's Play series. Where we can see down here are a lot of Blood Elves, who are the Blood Elves of Kael'thas Sunstrider, part of his regiment that came into Outland and are continuing to help Kael'thas with his basically goals in Outland. Where in the Burning Crusade story, we see that he betrayed the friends he made during the Warcraft 3 story, and he kind of went off on his own in order to serve Sargeras, where we have a raid right over here where we can kill Kael'thas, and that is basically the end of his storyline. But then we see him return in the final patch for the Burning Crusade, where he was basically not completely killed in Tempest Keep right over there, which looks very cool. But then he serves as the final boss for the final dungeon of the Burning Crusade, leading into the final raid of the expansion, where we fight Kil'jaeden himself. But here we have Tempest Keep, which is an incredibly important area for this Let's Play series and for the last Let's Play series. Or for this Let's Play series, this is an important spot because this is where Kael'thas Sunstrider is hanging out, which we have learned a lot about in our adventures throughout Quel'Thalas. But looping back around to my Draenei Warrior Let's Play series, we can see that these are basically dimensional spaceships that have flown through the Twisting Nether, and they're currently here in a Netherstorm, and they are basically ships of the Naaru, and the Naaru, of course, are incredibly powerful entities that are some of the most revered entities of the Draenei, where we have Tempest Keep here, where we have the Eye, and then with the dungeons we have the Mechanar right over here, and we have the Botanica and the Arcatraz, which are right over here. But there is a fourth ship and that is the Exodar, which the Exodar was basically hijacked by the Draenei, and they took it to Kalimdor, but it was sabotaged and it fell out of the sky over the Sea of Kalimdor and crash landed on Azurmist Isle, which is where we pick up the Draenei starting experience as you load into the zone for the first time. But I always just find Netherstorm to be a very fun area to run through and to explore, just because it's a really fun spot for questing, where I really like Karenvar village right over there, and of course all the Blood Elf storylines going on around here. Where Netherstorm is one of the two basically max level zones in the Burning Crusade, the other wish is Shadowmoon Valley, where this is a very cool area with a ton of demon storylines going on here. So we kind of have like two big like factions that we fight many factions throughout the Burning Crusade, but like the two biggest ones are Kael'thas's forces and then the demons of the Burning Legion, and then we have the third faction of Illidan's forces who we fight throughout the expansion. But when we look at the Aldor and the Scryers really care a lot about Kael'thas's blood elves throughout Outland, and you can fight a bunch of them to help out the Scryers. And then the Aldor really care about the demons throughout the expansion, and you can fight a bunch of demons in order to help them out, which we have a demon fortress right over there, basically settled within the ruins of an old orc fortress. So just a lot of storylines going on. We got like a Draenei fortress over there, and then we have a Dwarven fortress right there, and then we have this massive volcano, and then we have a Horde fortress right here, which I actually wanted to fly down for just a second to look at the Wind Rider Master, just to kind of look at the map art here, where we can see the Black Temple, and then Auchindoun, Shattrath, we got Hellfire Citadel and the Dark Portal, Tempest Keep, and of course the different ecodomes. And Netherstorm we saw a bit of. Blade's Edge Mountain is a little boring, but we can see some of the spikes and valleys and stuff. We got Serpent Shrine Cavern there, and then we can see the very fun, what's it called? Oh, it's called Oshigun. That's right. I think that's right. That is right. But just Outland, which is very cool. Let's just go ahead and actually fly into Terakar Forest, which is another zone. I say this all the time, but I just love this zone so much, and it's so fun. Which I just really enjoy the Burning Crusade and the Wrath Lich King and vanilla World of Warcraft, and I don't know why, it's just tends to be my favorite era of World of Warcraft, and I love it so much. Where I'm excited for my next Let's Play series as we explore some of the content of Wrath of the Lich King, where from there I have a bunch of streams that I've done throughout Vanilla, the Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, and then all the expansions of Cataclysm and Mr. Pandaria, plus looking at some of the stuff here and there from other expansions, and then have a short Let's Play series of going through Shadowlands, Battle for Azeroth, Legion, and Warlords of Draenor, which are the expansions that I basically did not play because I quit World of Warcraft before returning for World of Warcraft Classic, which I've experienced all of those areas a while in some capacity, and I've kind of explored it all and didn't really enjoy any of them except Vanilla, the Burning Crusade, and Wrath Lich King basically, where I'm actually enjoying the Dragonflight expansion a lot as I play through it, and I'm interested in playing through more of that. But here we have Stonebreaker Hold, which is a very cool area, and Terakar Forest is a cool zone because the capital city for all of Outland is located here at Shattrath City, where we can see this beam of light going off into the sky, and this is actually a sanctuary. So the Horde and the Alliance shared this capital city in their adventures throughout Outland, which I think is really fun. And this is just a really cool looking city, and I have a lot of nostalgia from just hanging out here and doing a bunch of things all around here, where we can go ahead and actually come into here, where we have the World's End Tavern, which I think is a really fun location, where we have Harris Pelton, who is a reference to a certain somebody I'm sure some people know about. But we got a bunch of interesting characters around here, and then we have a performer that comes and performs here. There's actually two different performers, band that plays, the Elite Torrent Chieftains, which we saw at Silvermoon City, and then there's a comedian who I think is Perry Gatner. I don't fully remember his name, but there's just so many areas all around here, which I think is really cool, including the Terrace of Light, where we got Archmage Khadgar and Adal hanging out here. Where in my Draenei Warrior Let's Play series, I came up here and explored the Aldor a little bit, and I think they are hostile towards me. Right, let's go ahead and come down here to the Scryers, where this area looks pretty similar to like Silvermoon City, but it's definitely here in Shattrath, where we can see basically Draenei ruins here, but then with a touch of Blood Elves, which I think is very, very fascinating. But we can go ahead and come into this main building here, which I've always liked this building because we have these profession trainers here, which are bookshelves, and I always thought that was like super interesting, and I always thought it was very, very cool. But we can go ahead and run up here past all of these various important characters to find the most important of them all, Vornithal the Seer, who is the leader of the Scryers, who we can go ahead and turn in some arcane tomes too, which we can get from Blood Elves across Outland, especially high level Blood Elves, I think. Where we can fly right over here, where we have Death or Sunstriker, where I actually want to do this quest, where we can report to the Sunwell. But I want to set my Hearthstone here to the Scryers tier, so we can go ahead and hearth back here, because I'm not done exploring Outland just yet, but we can go off 19,000 units that way to maybe the Dark Portal to go to Orgrimmar or something. But we can fly into here, and we can go ahead and come through this Shattrath portal to the Isle of Quel'Danas, which the Isle of Quel'Danas, of course, is a part of Quel'Thalas, because if we come and look at our map here, we explored through all of Eversong Woods and all of the Ghostlands, and we are now in the Isle of Quel'Danas, this high level zone that is north of this area, which is actually a level 30 area starting off, so we are here at a convenient time. But let's go ahead and run over here really quickly just so we can turn in this quest, Duty Calls, where we have the captain here.
Enemies will fall. The reckoning
and
is
there
at hand.
are a ton of daily quests here, and just a ton of different areas all around here that I explored a lot of in a stream that I did a long time ago, and then I came back through here somewhat recently, kind of not recently, through another stream as I did the dungeon and the raid here, where we see right up there is Magister's Terrace, and then right over here is the entrance to the Sunwell raid, which is the final raid of the Burning Crusade, where when I came through here recently in my stream, I actually got a legendary drop of the Thordal bow that you can get in this raid, and I thought that was really, really cool. But I always found this area super, super, super cool looking, as I've said a lot throughout this episode, where I just find like all these areas like really, really cool looking. But of course, Isle of Quel'Danas in particular is cool just because it's very similar to like the rest of Quel'Thalas, especially Eversong Woods, where it just looks, you know, basically copy pasted but with a different layout and whatnot. Where we have this orbit translocation here, which has a really, really cool like asset that we can go ahead and run up here, and I don't think there is a portal to return, which is why I basically set my Hearthstone to the Scryers tier. You can see a lot of bolts off in the distance there. Where we have this portal here where we arrived, but we cannot go back through it. Where if we did daily quests, one of them, we can go ahead and get a scroll to teleport us back to Shattrath, but I don't particularly want to do that right now, where I can just Hearthstone back. We're back in Shattrath City. Let's go ahead and fly into Nagrand, the last zone that I haven't really taken a sneak peek at, where we can see maybe the most beautiful zone in all of the Burning Crusade, and definitely the most popular across the community, where we just have an incredible looking zone. And this area is very, very important for the Horde, because there are a lot of old orc areas around here, where there are like some old orc graveyards, and we have this old arena here, which is actually a PvP arena that you can play in like the open world to do like some open world PvP, free for all PvP. We could just walk in there and fight some horde allies, but also in like structured arenas where you can queue up with like one friend or two other friends or four other friends to do some 2v2, 3v3, or 5v5, where we can see Oshigun right over there. And then we have Halal right here, which, speaking of PvP, Halal has always been kind of an interesting area because it is like an open world like PvP, like basically area where the Horde and the Alliance can fight for control of this outpost, which is something that they did a lot of in the Burning Crusade, where we have summoned Hellfire Peninsula, Terracore Forest, Zengar Marsh, and Nagrand. And that was basically kind of like continuing off of some of the stuff that they did in vanilla World of Warcraft, where there was some stuff going on here in Selathis, where you can do some open world PvP, and some stuff over here in the Eastern Plaguelands, where you could do some open world PvP as well, which is always kind of interesting to experience, but has never been too big of a part of World of Warcraft. Let's go ahead and leave that behind and fly over this way, which is such a beautiful, beautiful area. But we have this outpost right here, Garadar, which is the home of the Maghar orcs. And there are a bunch of important characters around here, like Garrosh, son of Hellscream, Joran Deadeye, who is technically the ward chief of the Bleeding Hollow clan, I believe. And an incredibly important character somewhere around here is Great Mother Gaia, who basically serves as an advisor to Thrall, as Thrall finds his people here in Outland and basically reestablishes a connection to them, and brings Garrosh to Azeroth, where Garrosh then goes to Northrend to help out the Horde in Northrend, and then becomes War Chief of the Horde in the Cataclysm expansion, where he becomes a major villain in the Mist of Pandaria expansion, where you defeat him in the Siege of Orgrimmar, and then he goes to alternate Draenor and starts this whole like alternate timeline thing, and then he's just killed by Thrall in Draenor, in Nagrand actually, in the alternate version of Nagrand. So just a lot of storylines that go on throughout World of Warcraft. Where as far as the storylines for the Burning Crusade and the Wrath Lich King, I am basically going to call it good here, where I do have one more tiny thing that I want to do in the future, which we will see in my next Let's Play series. But as far as this series goes, I'm going to go ahead and call it good here, where I had a ton of fun exploring through all of Quel'Danas and hanging out in Eversong Woods and the Ghostlands and completing all of the storylines going on there. And I just always enjoy completing those quests and going through those areas of the world just because I love them so much. And I hope you enjoyed watching through this entire series and everything that I did, where I may play this character again in the future, I may never play this character ever again, but it's been fun to explore here and there. Where if I do /played, we can see that I played for 7 hours, 17 minutes, and 56 seconds, which is fun. But I'm going to go ahead and call it good here, and I hope you all enjoyed watching, and as always, I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Remember to drink some water, check your posture, and subscribe, and I see you next time in the Road of Azeroth. Goodbye.